Hello everybody, Suman Pachigulla here, and this is about understanding of technology. So let's go straight to the point and understand what is that you have for today. All right, now here we are going to understand about what is Angular, AngularJS and JavaScript. So here is one disclaimer. This video, this knowledge, all this information for IT recruiters, basic understanding and knowledge only. So this is not a professional advice. All those information are been curated from online and presented in our own way. All right, and we hope you are going to get a lot of value out of this conversation. So let's understand where exactly these things come up and how exactly we will understand. All right, let me take you to career builder, dice.com. right now, here let's understand Angular developer role. Generally this is what we see, right? So here when we see Angular roles, now there are many recruiters, they have been confused about what is Angular, what is AngularJS, and is it a different, it is same, and what is that JavaScript comes in, and again it's like do I put a string of only Angular or shall I give JavaScript, or what is that all about? All right, that's how they get confused. Now here as we go through this, we are going to understand what exactly the client is looking for. So they have mentioned is Angular. So when they mention Angular, what exactly is that? And they say Angular 5 years. All right, and let's see, you see a few requirements comes with Angular 2.0, right, and few ask AngularJS. So what is that all about? So let me get few other requirements and see if we get a proper requirements of AngularJS. So they ask for TypeScript, Angular 10 they are looking for. Okay, so we are going to understand these technologies, Angular 10 or newer. Experience on Java and Angular TypeScript technologies, what exactly is that? So here we need to understand about what exactly the client means all this and what is that all about. All right, so first understand, before we get into AngularJS, let's understand what is JavaScript. So what is JavaScript is all about? So here JavaScript is a general purpose high level programming language. So it is also a scripting language that is used to create a dynamic websites and web applications to run in the client's web browser. For example, if we open this one, right, so this is a web browser. This is called the client side. Client side meaning anything the user sees or interacts with, meaning from the computer's front end or user interface, that is called client side. And this particular JavaScript, before it gives the result, it runs on the web browser, meaning it runs on the HTTP server. So web browser is you see here HTTP, right? So this is a web server. So there is a difference in web server and application server. So you need to have a clarity on that as well. So here what is that? The first thing is it is a general purpose programming language, or it is used as a scripting language to use dynamic pages. Dynamic pages, what we'll understand as we progress. All right, and create web applications which runs on the client side. It is basically a client-side scripting language which provides interactive effects within web pages to make the website look more dynamic. So this scripting language provides interactive effects. One page connects with another and it's a more dynamic, meaning the information keep changes. That's what it means. Now when we say dynamic, so it could be animation will be there, dynamic styling will be there, user response according to the location, according to the browsing, according to the timing, it changes. All right, it allows to do that. And what else? So JavaScript sometimes also used by web developers and backend developers for scripting. All right, now this is primary works with www with HTML CSS to create the front end pages. This web front end, or we can say web websites, or it's like a user interface. So it is primarily works on World Wide Web with HTML and CSS. All right, and what else? it brings web pages to life by adding interactive effects, right? This is what we are talking about with web browsers and manipulating the content to create dynamic effects. So JavaScript enables to connect with multiple web browsers and bringing dynamic results, different results and effects according to the user's preferences, whatever the person is there, and how the web application has been written in the backend. And it doesn't interact. So here is the primary thing. It doesn't interact with the server end of the web browser. In fact, it only deals with the interactive aspects of the website on the front end. So here JavaScript, when it is used in the front end, it doesn't connect with the application server. It's primarily works on the web server in the front end and shows results from there. All right. So here, if we are talking multiple times about dynamic effects, dynamic pages, right? So here there are two types of pages there, meaning website or web application, whatever you call. One is static. All right. What is static? Static is a website where let's say this is the, we can call this as a static web page. If we log in through any website, if we log in through any website with this URL address, so this is not a static anyways. For example, I'm just giving an example. If you go to sumanpachigulla.com, so that is a static website. That is an information based website. It means here the JavaScript directly connects with the web server and gets you the information. So it is like a information only. Static web pages, like, it's easy to create, and you don't need to have any knowledge of web programming and database designing to create a static website, because it works on the web server in HTTP server. Yeah, it works. And you don't need to have any database layer, business logic layer, or anything that needs to be connecting to the application server. We do not need anything else, because these web pages primarily coded in HTML. All right. So these are the primary, which are information based website. Those are coded in where? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript primarily they use. And here there are dynamic web pages. Dynamic web pages means when we enter from a client browser, it goes to the application server, it gets to the database, and again it gives information and it comes to the primary user. All right. Now here, if you are using, if people are using technologies, or people developers working to create a dynamic website, so it is definitely required for them to understand backend or server side languages like PHP, or we call it Java, .NET, Node.js, any backend related they need. Okay, Python, Ruby, any backend programming knowledge they require. Again, they need to have the application server information. It could be Apache, JBoss, Tomcat, web server, WebSphere, WebLogic, those kind of what is that? Application server knowledge, everything required. But for a static, you don't need anything else. All right. So here, JavaScript is primarily used in this one, and it is used on dynamic web pages as well. So it is a scripting language primarily. Now let's get into understanding what is Angular and AngularJS. This is what we were planning to understand, right? So as we move forward, you are going to have a clarity on each and every technology. As you understood now, JavaScript is a primary programming language, a scripting language used on a front end primarily to create that dynamic web pages, where it primarily runs on a web server only, not on the application server. And here AngularJS, on other hand, it is a web application framework written in JavaScript used to build large single page web applications. Now here, what is AngularJS? AngularJS is a web application framework. Framework means this particular AngularJS, it provides a framework, meaning it's a, before an application been built, there are few things which are primarily required. So those things have been already built, and the developers has to get in there and have to build their softwares. For example, if you have to stitch a woman's dress, right, there is already a framework for that, right? So you have to cut this, you have to do this, you have to do this, and once that particular lengths have been cut, now only you have to stitch it the way you want. So that kind of framework, and this is used, AngularJS primarily used that framework for build large. For example, we have a Amazon kind of Facebook kind of multiple pages, right? That kind of large web applications, and for single page web application. So what is single page web application? Single page web application is, let me show you if I can get you in here. So let's go to new incognito, and I'm gonna get into LinkedIn. Okay, now here if you see, this is a, once we enter LinkedIn, there are so many things are there, right? If we enter into LinkedIn, there are so many things are there, and you know that. What is that so many things? Let me take you to my LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see this is LinkedIn. There is a home, there is a network, and messaging, notifications, so many are there, right? So before I get into this web application, before I get into the multi-page application, I have primarily to get into this part. I have to sign in through single page, then I'll go to the multi-page. Clear? Now that is called single page application, SPA. They call it SPA as well. Clear? And now let me set it out. So what is the JavaScript? JavaScript is a web application framework written in JavaScript that is used for single page sign on web application or build large websites. All right, and Angular is an open source front-end web framework. AngularJS is what? Open source. Open source is free. All right. Now JavaScript based, this is JavaScript based to build a dynamic web application. We learned it, and it allows developers to use HTML as the template language and extend its syntax to create various application components. So it allows, you can use JavaScript and you can use HTML to extend and work on the AngularJS. All right, and the first version of the framework known as AngularJS was launched in 2009. So first AngularJS launched in 2009, and from there it started working. Now where did this Angular came from, right? We'll understand as we progress. So this particular AngularJS framework written in JavaScript, they use JavaScript, and when you use this framework to build web application web pages, you can use HTML and JavaScript or other languages. Now there is a drawback. What is that? AngularJS has built not keeping mobile browsers in mind. So AngularJS does not support mobile browsers. Now here another important thing is Angular is different from AngularJS. Now you might be thinking, if client is asking for Angular, you are bringing AngularJS candidates, it might be same. No, it is a different thing. How it is different, we will understand. All right, here I pulled an image. I'm sure it is going to be helpful for you, and we try to understand what is this all about. Okay, so here JavaScript is an interpreted programming language used to create dynamic web pages. So this is a programming language, scripted language, anything that we call which runs on the web server side at the web server level. But AngularJS is a front end application framework. So this is a scripting language, this is a framework based on JavaScript which excels at build dynamic, all right, which is changes with its nature. For example, you are in Amazon, you browse something, and next time when you log in you see similar kind of things, right? YouTube, you get into there, you look, you browse few kind of content, and next time it shows the similar content. Now the same way, that is called dynamic pages. It's a customized, it's customizes according to user preferences, and it shows, and that happens when it works with the backend server and which information to show. All right, so that's what the bigger thing it happens, and we are just learning from the surface level people for a single page application. So as we saw that, for example, if you have to log into your Facebook, you have to sign on to one first primary page. LinkedIn primary page. The same way in dice.com or career builder, you go to sign into first page to get into multiple pages. So those are called single page. Now this is JavaScript is a client side scripting language which is developed by Netscape. All right. For client side meaning user side, whatever the website is there to create that, Netscape developed this language. What is that language? JavaScript. But AngularJS created by Google. All right. So AngularJS is an open source JavaScript tool developed and maintained by Google now with Angular directive. So that goes into technology side. Now it's a full featured language used to manipulate document object model DOM. So here JavaScript used primarily to work on DOM side. DOM meaning document object model. So here this is a kind of a frame, this is kind of a flow. We can say this is a kind of model used how the application will look like and how exactly they're going to build. It's kind of flow chart sort of thing. All right. Now here in AngularJS, it extends HTML with new attributes along with other web technologies, meaning AngularJS can be worked on HTML and other technologies can be used. So here JavaScript expressions do not support filters, AngularJS expressions support filters, and there are other information out there. Okay, you can start learning as you see this one. So you got some primary information, right? What differentiates JavaScript and AngularJS primarily? So it's a scripting language, it's a framework. Now let's get in a little bit more about how AngularJS become Angular, right? So now since AngularJS has been created by Google, so how it is different from Angular? So here AngularJS commonly or simply it's known as Angular, and it's a full-featured web application framework based on JavaScript which is maintained by Google, right? So this is what we understood a while ago. And now here is what the real catch. So after releasing AngularJS, now you saw, right, AngularJS do not support what? Mobile. It is not a mobile friendly. It created, but it is not mobile friendly, and there are other things which are there which needs to be robust. All right. So here what happened after releasing that AngularJS around 2009-2010, the Angular team released Angular 2. This is what you need to remember. Angular 2 they released, which is a complete rewrite of the original Angular 1 or AngularJS. So first they released Angular 1, they call it AngularJS. After that, what happened? Angular team, whoever built it, they said no, it's not working. Let's rewrite it. So they have rewritten it with complete differently, and they named it as Angular. So it came with Angular 2. Then they released it with Angular 2. Now here, how did Angular 2 come in? It was written from scratch by the Angular team by using TypeScript. All right. Now it offers better performance to web developer. What is TypeScript? TypeScript is a kind of a programming language again. So that is also based on JavaScript. So here TypeScript is like a superset of JavaScript. For example, if JavaScript is this much, so TypeScript surrounds bigger part of it. So JavaScript, whatever it is written in JavaScript, it works, but whatever you can write in TypeScript with a compiler, those codes can be converted to a JavaScript code. All right. So that's little bit of a high level with multiple JavaScripts, meaning different versions of JavaScript with TypeScript. They write it and they use a compiler. Compiler meaning one language converts to a different language. So TypeScript language, where after writing all those code, before they execute it, the compiler translates it to JavaScript and that runs on the browser. So they use that compiler to translate it. All right. So now what is that we understood here? Angular team totally rewritten it on TypeScript and they named it as Angular 2. Now here is a history. Okay. Angular 1, which was also referred as AngularJS, is a JavaScript open source framework. So it was designed specifically for single page web applications, which is fully owned by Google, and they released it in 2010. Now when did this Angular 2 came in? Now here Angular 2 is a fully built and completed rework version of Angular 1. So they reworked. How did they work? It is compatible with mobile devices. That is the reason they just did it, because AngularJS was not compatible. Moreover, Angular 2 gives an option to choose more languages. We saw, right? What are the more languages? If you are using Angular 2 framework to build a web application, you can use ES5, ES6 or TypeScript. ES5, ES6 is nothing but it's another version of JavaScript. It's a different version of JavaScript to write codes of Angular 2. So once they write codes on this with the TypeScript, what they do, they're going to compile it and they'll make it JavaScript friendly so that the website understands. All right, so that's how it started. And here is the history for you people. So you got an idea now. What is that? JavaScript is a scripting language for creating front-end website or web application which primarily runs on the web browser side. Now when it comes to AngularJS become a framework. It's an open source framework that's been used for web applications to create dynamic web pages. Now since AngularJS has few limitations, and that was not for mobile browsers. The AngularJS was not good for, that was not supporting for mobile web browsers. What is that Angular team did? They have rewritten it totally, right? They rewritten it on TypeScript and they named it Angular 2. Now that is now robust and that is working so much we can say it's a mostly used at this point of time, Angular 2 or its next versions. And now for AngularJS, they are not updating anymore. Whatever the AngularJS is there, whatever they have created around 2009-10, they stopped it. They're primarily focusing on Angular 2, 3, 4, 5, that versions. All right, now let's understand what is that all about. Okay, now here this Angular version dates. So first they released Angular 1.0 2010, then Angular 2 2016, then Angular 4 released in 2017. Now where is the Angular 3? So what happened actually, while they were creating Angular 2, when they are naming it for the router, by mistakenly they have given Angular 3 and they executed it. Now when they have to change for next version, they have already seen for the router in Angular 2, they named it Angular 3, so they directly released Angular 4. There is no Angular 3 anymore. All right, so from here it starts. And what are the differences? There are technological differences, there are feature differences in every module, every release. Angular 5 released in 2017, Angular 6 2018, so same year they released it, and same year 6 and 7 also. Angular 8 released on 2019, Angular 9 in 2020, Angular 10 is in 2020, Angular 11 is in 2020. So as they are finding few bugs, or they want to add some features, or they want to make it more robust, they are working on it and releasing it, and we have no idea how far it is going to be. Understand? So here what did we understand? Once again, to reiterate, what did we learn? JavaScript is a interpreted programming language, AngularJS is a framework, and Angular team worked on it and they used TypeScript to rebuild it, where they named it Angular 2. So it could be it can be, this framework can be written, or the programs can be written on higher versions of JavaScript or TypeScript, and with a compiler they can convert it to JavaScript and it can run easily. And here AngularJS, if we see, JavaScript is it's a language of web used to make websites more interactive, but here it's a MVC based architecture that makes a web application easy to create from the scratch. What is that? What did you understand here, people? Let's come again. JavaScript is a language of the web used to make websites for interactive. So if you are creating a website or front page or user interface pages, JavaScript is there. if you are using a web application, meaning a big application, that if I get in here, I ask something, website has to give an answer, and it is just not like a static web page with information based, or it's more of a communicative or dynamic. So it's a MVC based architecture. MVC, what is MVC? We can call it as a framework, or it is a model, like design pattern. It's a model view controller. MVC is called for model view controller. So here, to give you an example of this architecture, model view controller, let me think of it. Model view controller, for example, it's a view. Okay, it's a model view controller. Now you are here in Amazon, and you have checked a product and you have clicked it to add to the cart. Now what is that happened in the view? That you wanted to add something to the cart. Now it went to the controller. It went to the controller, and controller received this information that you wanted to add to the cart. And what is that did the controller? It sent to that model, and it said, go check in the database if everything is good, and because this user want to add it to the cart, if that everything is good, give that information and or add that to the cart. Sometimes what is that happens? This controller responds it if that is small request. If it is a big request, what does that happen? We wanted to add something in a cart, that is the view. We send a request. In the backend, what happened? It went to the controller. Controller gave information to the model, and model worked on it. Either it could send information to the controller and control gives to the view, or this model can directly give it to the view and we can see the output. All right, though that is the architecture, and there are many. So that is like a superficial overall that I could explain you, and I hope you understood what is that it means, right? MVC based architecture. It's a model view architecture. Clear? Now this is what all about. So next time when you get a requirement, what requirement you get? Next time you get a AngularJS requirement, now you understood that if someone is using Angular, so definitely they know JavaScript, and TypeScript primarily they use, and they know that. Okay, those people who know Angular, they know TypeScript as well. And TypeScript is a what? It is also a programming, it's a object-oriented programming language this is, and this is a superset of JavaScript. It encompasses JavaScript. Clear, people? So this is how you're going to write, and don't get confused. When you get Angular, you give a AngularJS candidate. All right, it won't work like that. All right, and don't get confused with JavaScript with AngularJS. So JavaScript is a scripting language and AngularJS is a framework, and I hope it was useful for you. And if you like it, do share your comment and share this video with other people, and do subscribe to this channel. And there are so many new things are coming in, and I hope you don't want to miss it. All right, thank you so much once again, and this is Suman Pachigulla on a mission to impact 5 million lives through recruiters. Join in the mission. Take care and God bless you, people. Bye bye.